Welcome, everyone. My name is Shirley, and I will be your moderator this evening. Tonight's webinar is titled Code to Success, Unlocking Revenue Through Precision in Dental Coding. I am excited to welcome Phylip Curtis, Director of Sales and Marketing for Unitas Dental. Over the past 8 years, Phylip has implemented and managed the business development, the sales, marketing, and IT departments for Unitas. And I'd also like to welcome Dr. Jim DiMarino, CEO of Practice Booster. As a patented inventor, trainer, educator, publisher, and lecturer, his contributions have left an indelible mark on the industry. And with over a decade of experience in the dental insurance sector, serving as a trusted consultant, Dr. DiMarino brings a wealth of knowledge to our discussion tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to go over some questions. We'd love to invite you to type it into the Q&A box, and we're going to address all questions at the end of the webinar. CE is not available for this webinar tonight. In the meantime, please join me in welcoming Dr. DiMarino and Phylip, who's going to start us off, actually, and thank you for being with us. I'll pass it over to you now.
Awesome. Thank you, Shirley. So excited to go over this information today. I've been looking forward to this webinar for months. So I'm going to give Jim the majority of the mic tonight, and I'm really excited for the information that he's going to present today. But just a kind of quick introduction to myself into the topic, what we're going to go through today. Like many of you know, one of the biggest issues that doctors are facing nationwide right now is coming down to how low their reimbursement rates are from insurance. In fact, the ADA did a poll back in, I think it was 2022, and over 82% of dentists polled had seen no increase to the reimbursement rate in the last 12 months. And that was in 2022. And inflation's gotten worse since then. And I would wager that the numbers either increased or it stayed very similar. And so if you're on the webinar tonight, likely you own a dental practice, you work for a dental practice, or you work within a dental practice, and you're looking to increase your revenue, especially in this inflationary environment and with reimbursement rates being so substantially lower than where you want them to be. So what Jim and I and Dr. DiMarino and I are going to cover today are 2 core strategies to increasing your revenue that kind of delve into what we're going to call unlocking revenue through precision in dental coding. The first one we're going to talk about is contracting, otherwise known as credentialing, and how you can improve those reimbursement rates that you're getting with your contracts with insurance companies. And then Jim's going to take the lion's share of the presentation tonight to talk about coding and how you can unlock even more revenue opportunities in your day-to-day coding environments, whether that's putting that information into the claim form, putting that information into your practice management software. So we're going to talk about those 2 strategies today. Now, I've had the opportunity to present in this environment quite a few times. If you're on the call today and you haven't heard a presentation from me, welcome. If you have, this is going to be more or less a repeat of the things we've gone over before. But one thing that I found is that with repetition comes comprehension. And when it comes down to PPOs, so many doctors, and Jim can attest to this, so many doctors don't go into dental school to become insurance experts. The last thing that they want to do, and Jim, you can unmute and you can contribute whenever you want if you want to add in any comments. But at the same time, what we're going to go over today is just helping doctors and helping everybody on the webinar understand what a PPO really is, what it does for your practice, what an insurance company really is, and how you participate with those. Because if your goal is to increase your reimbursement rates, you want to solve that problem, it's really important to understand the problem that we're trying to solve. So I'm going to dive into that now, and then we're going to dive into quickly what the reimbursement rate and negotiation potential is for practices nationwide. And then we're going to talk about an even more important strategy before you negotiate, before you try to increase those reimbursement rates that Jim will cover today. That is arguably even more important and something that you should be leveraging immediately, regardless of the amount of insurances that you work with. And that comes down to optimizing your actual dental coding. So let's dive in. I'm super excited to go through this today. Like Shirley said, we're going to go over a lot of material. So if you have any questions, please put those in through the Q&A box, and we'll get to the Q&A towards the end of today's presentation. So here's the $1 million question. No pun intended, because this comes down to fees. But do you feel like you're being compensated fairly by your PPO insurance companies? I think I know the answer to that question for most of you. Jim, how do you feel? How did you feel about that when you were practicing dentistry on a day-to-day basis? Do you feel like you were compensated fairly by insurance companies?
I think that's a difficult question for a lot of practitioners, because you want to be reimbursed for worth that you're providing, right? So the challenges that we have on the PPO side is that those fees aren't necessarily what you're charging as your UCR fee schedule. So I think a lot of us would say that we're kind of short-sighted or feeling a shortcoming on the side of the PPO reimbursement side. Is that fair to say?
100%.
Yeah.
I'd say out of all the dentists that we've polled, again, they feel the same way. They want higher reimbursement rates because the majority of their patients that they're seeing are coming from insurance. And the data shows that over 75% of the American population has some form of PPO insurance. So if you're the average practice, that means 75% of all the patients you treat, the lion's share of what you're getting paid is coming in the form of a check from the insurance company. And if those rates of reimbursement never increase and you never attempt to increase them, you're locked in to those reimbursement rates, more than likely indefinitely. And so what we're here to talk about today is the opportunities that you have as a provider to increase the reimbursement rates. If you don't feel like you're being compensated fairly, you have opportunities and options, and that's what we'll talk about. So let's dive into the contracting element of PPO participation. What I think is the most important thing for everybody to understand is that insurance is a much more complicated beast than what most doctors think through, and what most practices think through. When it comes to insurance, most practices think about it as an on and off switch. I'm either in network with insurance or I'm out of network with insurance, which is 100% accurate. The problem, though, is that's too high level. It goes much deeper than that. When it comes to being in network with insurance, there's actually 3 ways you can be in network with insurance that most practices don't realize. And this is really where it comes down to how you end up getting paid. So those 3 different types of participation are what we call direct contracts, which I'll dive into each of these. PPO to PPO leasing arrangements, and the third one is umbrella networking. And the differences here are so important because if you're going to try to increase your reimbursement rates, the strategies that would be employed to increase your reimbursement rates will depend on how you're participating with these insurance companies. Very similar to when Jim does an x-ray on a patient, if he finds out that they need a root canal, he's not putting a filling in that tooth. He's doing a root canal, right? And again, if they need a filling, they have a cavity, he's not doing a root canal. The problem determines the solution. Again, and if they need an extraction, we're not even talking about any of those things. The same thing when it comes to PPO insurance. When we're trying to figure out how to negotiate and increase your reimbursement rate, we have to understand how exactly you participate now, because that will ultimately decide what types of strategies you employ and what types of treatment that you provide to this problem that you're facing in your practice. So let's dive in. A direct contract, the most common and most popular form of PPO participation is what would be called this direct contract. What this looks like is when you as a doctor or you at your office have credentialed the doctor with a particular insurance company, you filled out their application. So if I've credentialed with Cigna, I'm filling out a Cigna application. I'm agreeing to Cigna's rates of reimbursement according to the fee schedule that they've set me, so that when I treat a Cigna patient and I send the claim to Cigna, not only is Cigna paying that claim, but they're paying me according to the fee schedule that they provided to me, their fee schedule. That's a direct contract. And again, a lot of that probably sounds oversimplified, and you're thinking, that sounds like how insurance works, which you're right. A direct contract is a pretty common relationship. What's becoming increasingly more common, though, are leasing arrangements. So if you're being leased from a PPO, what that typically looks like is you might credential as a doctor directly with a company like Guardian. You want to treat Guardian patients. You like Guardian's rates of reimbursement, so you treat Guardian patients. You've credentialed with them. Well, what Guardian has the power to do, and what almost every insurance company has the power to do, is they can take the contract that you just signed, they can lease that out to any other PPO that they want to. And the reason that they can do that is because these other PPOs that want to have you credentialed, they want to have you in network, have been unsuccessful at getting you to credential with them. Thus, instead of continuing to try to convince you to join them, they can go to one of the PPOs you've already agreed to contract with, and they can borrow you from them. And again, that's not a free relationship. So again, if Aetna wants to lease you from Guardian, they have to pay for that. But now Aetna can sign paperwork with Guardian and then basically lease that existing contract. So what would happen is maybe Aetna patients have never shown up at your practice before, or maybe they have been and they were out of network. So then if all of a sudden the patient base that's historically been out of network has now been magically switched to being in network, this is probably what's happened. Aetna has come along, created a leasing arrangement, and now you're being leased with Aetna through Guardian. And so what that means is you treat an Aetna patient, you send the claim to Aetna, and maybe you're expecting that claim to come back out of network, but now, surprise, it's in network, and what reimbursements are paid? Aetna's paying you according to Guardian's contracted reimbursement rates. So they're literally borrowing not just the contract that you signed, but they're borrowing the agreed upon reimbursements. So again, leasing is not necessarily a bad relationship to have with insurance. It's just a different relationship. And we're not necessarily a proponent of one or the other. It comes down to how you're paid and what's the best way to be paid and what's the highest reimbursing fee schedule. But why this matters is if you're trying to increase your reimbursement rates, if this is the relationship you have with these two PPOs, the strategies that you'll use to negotiate this scenario will be vastly different than if you were just directly contracted with that carrier. I hope that makes sense to everybody. That's what matters here, is if you're trying to increase your reimbursement rates, if you're directly contracted, who you reach out to first will be much different than who you reach out to for lease. Okay. The third type of participation is an umbrella network company. So we call them umbrella networks. There's lots of popular phrases and terms for these, but lots of people call them third-party administrators or TPAs. What an umbrella network essentially is an intermediary between doctors and lots of PPOs. What an umbrella can do, somebody like Connection or Dynamax or Carrington, they typically don't have card-carrying patients. What they do is they go out, they set their own fee schedule, their own reimbursement rates. They get lots of doctors to agree to credential with them, and then they create a relationship with lots of PPOs underneath their umbrella. So if you credential with somebody like Dynamax, they have an existing relationship with 10 or plus major PPOs in your area. And so if you credential with Dynamax according to Dynamax's fees, Dynamax can turn around and send your information out to everybody under their umbrella. And now you may fall in network with 5 or 6 or 10 individual insurance companies, all through Dynamax. So what that would look like is you're still going to treat those patients. So maybe Cigna, MetLife, and Principal, they're all falling through Dynamax. You'd still treat those patients. You'd still see separate cards. You'd still send claims to 3 different areas, more than likely. And you'd still get claims back from 3 different companies, but they're all borrowing Dynamax's fee schedule. So if you find that you're paid a very similar reimbursement rate, or basically the exact, for a D0120 across multiple insurance companies, odds are they're leasing you from one contract. So again, same thing here. If you wanted to increase this reimbursement rate, who would you reach out to if you wanted to increase it? Would you reach out to this green insurance company? The answer is no. You would reach out to the umbrella network first to increase the fee schedule, and then you would reach out to the green, orange, and purple. So that's what we're the experts at in Unitas, and that's what we provide, is we help practices understand what is your participation now. We understand that it's a complicated web. And to further complicate it, the web of participation and who you've contracted with can be different per doctor, per location. So even worse, so if Jim had 2 locations here in Arizona and he'd credentialed at Mesa and in Gilbert, it's very possible that he could be in network with Guardian and paid $85 at Mesa, and at 3 miles down the road, he's credentialed with Guardian through Aetna and he's paid $95, and it could be the same patient. And depending on which one and where he treated them, he's paid a totally different reimbursement rate. And I realize $10 might not seem like a big difference, but you times that by 1,000, or the difference is $100 or $200 or $300, participation matters. And so what it comes down to with Unitas is we will attempt to negotiate with every carrier that we can. We've negotiated on behalf of thousands of practices nationwide, and that's what we do, and that's who we help. But beyond just negotiating with the individual insurance companies, we help optimize. So when it comes to leasing scenarios, right now you might be in network through an orange carrier, and the green carrier is being paid through the orange carrier. Well, we're going to also look at the green carrier and say, hey, if this is Aetna and Guardian, what's Aetna willing to pay if we switch to being direct with Aetna as opposed to being Aetna through Guardian? So in this scenario, maybe this orange carrier pays us $70, but maybe this lease partner is willing to pay us, if we switch our participation relationship with them, maybe they're willing to pay us $77. So again, these are very small numbers just for the sake of simplicity. But what if that fee schedule overall, if we simply switched it, was 10% higher? You're doing the same amount of work for 10% more from these insurance companies. So again, increasing your reimbursement rates is more than possible. We've done it for thousands of practices nationwide when it comes to negotiating and optimizing reimbursement rates. But the point that I want to drill home today is that it's so much more than just increasing your reimbursement rates. That's not where the bucket starts to leak. And that's where so many practices are focusing today is, I'm tired of my reimbursement rates. And that's been rightfully so. If they haven't increased in 2 years or 2 decades, I understand the frustration of practices nationwide. And we know that they're frustrated, and that's why we exist, is to help them. However, the bucket of leaking revenue starts well before insurance pays your claim. It starts in the practice. It starts with which codes you use. It starts with how many codes you use, the correct codes you use, and how you put them on the claim form. And that's what Jim's going to talk about today, is there's so much more opportunity that can be compounded when you have better reimbursement rates when it comes to using correct coding and not using the wrong codes. And that's what Jim's going to dive into. So again, I wanted to pass the baton over to you, Jim, because what I want everybody to understand is that although the hot topic in the industry right now is increasing my reimbursement rates, one of the most overlooked and uncommonly known issues is that so much of the revenue leaks out well before the claim form ever goes out the door. And that's where Jim and his team are the experts. And I want to hand it over to you to keep helping us learn and help educate us on those different areas where we're leaking revenue as civil practices.
Phil, thank you so much. I've seen this a couple of times, obviously, but I really wish I had this knowledge earlier, because I think that's a lot of great information that dentists don't realize. Part of the concern that we have is we don't sometimes know if we're credentialed, and you credential with one carrier, and the next thing you know is you go downstream and you're starting to get these claims that are saying that you're now a network, as you just described. And it took me a long time to figure out that what you said and how you portrayed that from the umbrella to the lease networks is how your participation in all these other plans kind of evolve. And the contracts are so long, it's so hard to figure out exactly where you focus to determine if they're able to, if you're signing and saying that, hey, you're open to umbrella and lease networks. So appreciate you helping us understand that. And again, a lot of what we're dealing with is dentistry is very difficult, right? And I think by simplifying it the way you did, tell me understand where it starts from the top level down with the credentialing, and then how that partnership with the insurance carriers affects your practice, right? So now we got to take that step back. So like you said, it's about the treatment now. So let's kind of go back to what happens when that patient comes into your office. So first of all, I want to thank you for including me tonight. It's the first time I've done a webinar with you, Phil. I know that you're extremely famous, so I appreciate you including me and your fame, at least for tonight.
I did not even close, Jim. To take in terms of fame, I'm just here to ride his coattails.
No, we're riding together. This is fun, but truthfully, you hit the nail on the head. Where does the bucket start leaking? I didn't know much about dental codes. I certainly didn't know that they changed every year, and I certainly didn't know that some are deleted, and I didn't really understand how the insurance companies looked at the code. So we're going to dig into that a little bit today. So first thing we're going to do is introduce myself. I shared a little bit. I had to, full disclosure, I want to let you know that I also own a dental lab. His name is Gavel. He is 5 months old, and we raise seeing eye puppies, and so we get them when they're 8 weeks old, and we train them until they're about 18 months old. So while I tell you about him, this is my information. If you want to screen capture, take a picture of that, it'll take you to my link, and then we can connect and be happy to answer any questions if I don't get to him tonight. But Gavel's, he's our 7th seeing eye puppy. And like I said, he's 5 months old, and we'll train him for about another year or so. Then I'll go back to the seeing eye and go through the extensive training and become a seeing eye dog that now gets placed with a blind person. So just wanted to share that information with you. I do always want to share that we lost a giant in the dental industry. Dr. Blair passed away a couple of months ago, and he was our mentor. He founded this company, and we do everything we can to carry on his legacy. So special shout out to our friend, our mentor, our inspiration, Dr. Blair, and for all that he's done to help create these tips and tricks that we're going to share with you tonight. Disclaimer again, we're not healthcare attorneys. What we're going to offer is some suggestions. And the one simple thing to always remember is code what you do. That's a famous saying from Dr. Blair. It sounds simple, just like Phil was saying, certain things sound simple, but then as you get into the normal day-to-day of running a practice, you realize that sometimes those simple things are forgotten and sometimes overlooked, and it could be costing you a lot of money. So let's see what that looks like from from our perspective. If you look at the objectives for our little bit of the course today, we want to look into the keys to submitting claims. What is AI, artificial intelligence? What's AI's role in claims review? Gaining insights into the latest dental code updates. I'm just going to spell these out for you. There's 14 new codes in the 2024 series, 2 revised codes, and 1 complete new category, which is now encompassing sleep apnea services. I also want to talk to you about discovering how you can reduce coding errors and improve accuracy of claim submissions. All these things play a factor in the revenue coming through the door. So what is the key to submitting claims? Let's really think about this for a second, because I never really did, right? So in my world, I'm always thinking, okay, what's the schedule look like, right? Is the staff going to show up? Is everybody going to be happy? Are we all going to get along today, right? Are the patients even going to come through the door? And, are they going to tell me what I usually hear? Oh, I hate going to the dentist. So okay, I get it. We're here to help you. So there's a lot of things that are involved with running a dental practice. You're running mini hospitals. There's a lot that goes into it. So the one thing you want to make sure is that you're maximizing your legitimate reimbursement. It's too hard to do this job to leave any money on the table. So let's look at the overall perspective. So as Shirley mentioned, I was a former dental director. I was the one that you would call and complain to, right? So if you didn't like a claim, you didn't like the result or the denial, you'd pick up the phone and say, I like to talk to the dental director. And I've heard everything. I've heard, are you even a licensed dentist? How can you dictate treatment, when you've never seen my patient, and they're the nice things that people say. But what I want to help you understand is what it looks like from the insurance carrier side. Because if you understand that side and understand what Phil just described, there's a way to make your office profitable and make sure you're not losing money just because you're missing out on key steps. So when you look at this chart, I thought this was fascinating. National Association of Dental Plans came out with this report. 58.4 million dental claims were sent electronically in last year. So when you look at 2022, the next is 25% of so it's 14.6 million required human intervention. When you look at the paper side, now I know a lot of us have switched over, but there's still 14.6 million dental claims sent by paper. But look at the difference. 50% of those claims require human intervention. When you put eyes on a claim from the insurance carrier's side, that delays the process for the provider. So summary, right? Try and submit electronic claims. If you submit electronic claims, that will allow you to have less, time, hopefully, for the claims to need to be reviewed. And typically it's because of the screening process that you have to kind of go through to submit electronic claims. It'll help make sure that the proper tooth number is on the claim or the surfaces are on the claim. So all those things come into effect. But what you're seeing is that shift to electronic claims has kind of helped us to uncover another opportunity in dentistry. And I call it an opportunity because I really think it is. Now, and I want to share this with you because AI has been in dentistry for some time. And it's going to grow. And what I want to tell you a little bit more about how it's going to grow. So right now, 25% of payers are currently using AI to review your radiographs. 56% are planning to implement it over the next 2 years. Similarly, 21% are using AI in other areas of claim processing, and 50% are planning on implementing them in the next 2 years. So can it scan for perio? Yes. Can it scan for, bone loss and all kinds of abscesses, caries? It's amazing what AI is able to do on the radiographic side, but then also how you integrate that to review your claims in the goal to increase auto adjudication. I know that sounds strange, but insurance carriers want to increase auto adjudication because if the insurance carrier is going to have to pay your claim, they want to pay it the first time. Every time they have to look at your claim, it costs them money. Well, that's what we want too. We want our claim to be paid the first time. So when you look at these statistics, 75% electronic claims and 50% of paper claims are auto adjudicated. 75 versus 50, and that's going to continue to grow. So I wanted to share this with you because AI is affecting claims adjudication. How's it doing that? Well, it's not surprising to see that the first thing it's looking for is if you're using the current CDT codes. What does that mean? Well, every year, in fact, on Thursday, the ADA is meeting annually. This is their normal code maintenance committee meeting. There's a large group that gets together, and I could go through that with you. It's not just the ADA. There's members, representatives from many other organizations. And in fact, I'm going, Dr. Greg Gromeyer and I are going from Practice Booster. We're going there to represent you, to learn what's happening so that we can turn that around and put that into our books and our webinars so that we can teach you what's changing so that you know ahead of time what 2025 is going to look like. Now, I know I sped up there a little bit. We're going to get back to what 2024 looks like, but I never knew that the codes change every year. This week is when it happens, and we're going to bring that information to you so that you don't have to learn this on your own. I wish I had had that earlier when I was practicing, because when those codes change, we need to know if we're using them incorrectly. That's the number one reason claims get denied: incorrect coding. A lot of people are using deleted claims. So people make up codes. Deleted codes. Some make up codes and using custom codes in your office. Talk about that a little bit as well. How is AI affecting it? Essentially, AI is able to process your claims or review them and flag the ones that need human review. So only humans can deny claims. And that's what AI is trying to filter. It's trying to filter the ones that don't need review so that they can get processed and paid quickly. If-then statements for rules engines like frequency limitations and is there a 4910? Has there been a history of scaling and root planing? All those things are already programmed into the system. So before your claim gets sent, depending on what code you're using, it's going to take a different journey through the insurance carrier. So all this information, I'll skip through this a little bit, but I do want to key in a second on narratives. What's in box 35, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit more and a little bit later too. This is really, really important. And if you get nothing else out of this conversation, please pay attention to that one. That's going to be a game changer for you in helping you get your claims adjudicated quickly. They can scan images, like I said, diagnostic now for caries, abscesses, bone loss. There's a lot of things that AI is learning to do, and it's going to be affecting us. And truthfully, it's good because if we submit claims correctly, they're going to get auto-adjudicating quicker. So let's go a little bit deeper and talk about what carriers want to know. It's pretty simple, right? They want to know that the procedure was actually performed, that it was medically necessary, that maybe if it's strictly cosmetic, then we have a different pathway that the claim takes through the process. Has the procedure been upcoded? Meaning, is it a simple extraction, but it's being billed out as a full bony impaction? Those are red flags. If you've ever been placed on focus review, which I hope you haven't, that means that the insurance carriers have seen red flags due to your submissions and a pattern that may suggest that the insurance carrier shouldn't be paying your claims, right? Because of one of these issues. Maybe it wasn't accurate. Maybe there was upcoding. Maybe it was strictly cosmetic and there's a limitation in the policy that prevents cosmetic procedures from being compensated. Was a procedure properly represented by the most current CDT code in effect at the time the procedure was performed? Any of these things, if they don't occur, could result in a claim delay or denial. I'm going to come back to that as well, because claims get denied. What happens? How do you handle that? So claims are often denied due to incorrect CDT codes, missing documentation, attachments that are missing, or severe delays in submission or timely filing. Without an up-to-date coding resource, dental practices risk claims being denied unnecessarily. Here's the kicker. According to Dr. Blair in his 30 years in the industry, only 33% of denied claims get appealed. Let that sink in for a second. If I said to a new hire, we work 12-hour days, but you only get paid for 10. How's that sound? I don't think I'm going to get very many people signing up for that job. But dentists do this every day because we're the last ones that get paid in the office. And the question I have for you is, what happens if that claim comes back and it's denied? Do we actively look at why it was denied? Does our team understand why it was denied and appeal it? Or does it just get pushed aside and written off saying, well, the insurance didn't pay it, so there's no more work to be done here? The challenge is, unless we know what we're sending, And unless we know how to handle denied claims so that we can appeal them or should appeal them, we could be leaving money on the table. So let's go into the next side of the process here and look at, let's try and get this to move here. There we go. So the thing I hear often, and I'm sure you hear it too, as a dental director, I heard it many times. Why is the patient's maximum $1,500? Did you know that maximums were set in 1970, and back then crowns were $500 a piece? That means they could get 3 crowns a year. Why is it still $1,500? And I would explain to them, as it was explained to me, the employer purchases the plan. The insurance company administers the benefit the employer purchased. That's it. They don't dictate treatment. They just administer the benefits the employer purchased. The employer could purchase a $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, a higher deductible, a higher benefited plan, but often they don't. So when I hear this and I found this statistic, I thought, let's kind of share this and let's see if this kind of squares the circle for a lot of us. What percentage of PPO dental plan participants actually reach or exceed their plan's annual maximum? And it's really 2.8%. So as much as we complain about the $1,500, $1,750, $2,000 maximum, it's only come into play 2.8% of the time. Now, this is according to the National Association of Dental Plans. Again, a real pioneer in the industry to help us understand what's happening out there. So what is it that's going on? You know, the other statistic that I want to share with you is most dental offices, on average, use anywhere from 80 to 120 CDT codes. So if I were to ask you how many actual CDT codes are there, a lot of my dentists that I work with are shocked to hear there's over 850. So if we're only using 10% of the codes, are we coding correctly? And are we coding to help maximize legitimate reimbursement? The answer is most likely and unfortunately no, but that's why we're here to help. So ADA CDT codes. How many CDT code changes have there been? Well, is this a real issue, right? Okay, they change each year, but does it really affect me? The answer is yes. There's been over 200 changes to the ADA CDT code set since 2020 alone, and here they are. This year alone, we have 15 new codes, no deleted codes, although deleted codes is the number one way to get a claim denied. If you submit a deleted code, the insurance company is going to deny it. What do? Do you write it off? All that happened was you submit the wrong code. And I have to tell you, Dr. Blair's been doing revenue enhancement consultations for offices for 3 decades. And we've been continually to update this. And what we're finding is, on average, general dental offices are using anywhere from 1 to 5 deleted codes a year. They're using on average about 22 custom codes. Remember those codes that we say, hey, showing up for a crown, I'm going to make a crown placement code. But then they also make codes for different things, and they submit those codes unknowingly to insurance carriers. They're going to get denied. 22 on average. 1 to 5 deleted codes per office. Those are automatic denials and delays. So these changes matter. This year, there's a whole new category of codes, and it's a whole sleep apnea set that the ADA just created as well. So a lot of information here I know is coming at you, but I'm hoping it's going to start to sink in. And I want to help you understand that the ADA is the official and definitive source of the CDT coding. They own the codes. Right? So any consultant that you're working with who uses these codes is most likely paying the ADA a royalty to use those codes because they own the codes. That's why they're updating it. So rule number 1, always code for what you do and report what you do. Dr. Blair's been saying that for 30 years. Codes are not specialty specific. You don't have a special code for an orthodontist or a periodontist. Everyone uses the same set of codes, and they're updated annually. Never knew that. Now I do. So how do you find the most up-to-date coding resources that best suit your office needs? Well, the ADA is a great start. The ADA has the code terminology book. They've got a coding companion, and they've got an app. Great resource if you look into the CDT 2024 Coding Companion app. This is a screenshot of what you'll get. You'll see the name, you'll see the number, you'll see the name, the description, the nomenclature of what each of these codes is and how it should be used. And it's a great resource to help you if you, I buy them every year. The other opportunity is through Practice Booster. We have all the information that's in the ADA CDT book, we have in our CDT 2024 Coding with Confidence book. We also have an online version of this book where you can search the code by placing them. If you don't know the code number, you can place a keyword in the search field and it'll tell you which code to use. And we also have newsletters that come out. We have a coding support section. If you subscribe for $297 a year, you get online access to this online database where you can go and search any code. You can scrape the narrative out. You can type that, drop it into your claim form. You also get the insurance newsletter, which comes out every other month. And you also get unlimited code support. You text us a question, email us a question, we'll answer you within 48 hours. All those questions we combine into these newsletters so that every 2 months we come out with a newsletter of all the hot topics of the questions that we've been asked. So we keep you up to date. All that's online. Like I said, $297 a year. If it saves you one claim and it pays one claim for you, it pays for itself. All the books. And then we have a new coding compliance calendar. This helps you understand when you're supposed to change the water lines, when you're supposed to update your sport tests. All those things are documented here. You write your initials on the date that is completed. And at the end of the year, you fold that out and you put it in your compliance folder. And if you're ever audited, you pull that out and you show that you completed all the tasks for the year. Now, if you go onto the practicebooster.com website, practicebooster.com, and you can sign up for Code Advisor, this is what you see. So for scaling root planning, for a moderate to severe gingivitis, 4346, everything that's in the ADA book, we show here. But then we go into warnings. We go into telling you how that you may or may not want to use this code. We also have quick change references. So all the code changes for 22, 23, 24, they're all at your fingertips. We also have these amazing charts, flow charts that help you in your office know how and when to utilize certain codes. This one has a lot on it, but if you look at it, it helps you understand and digest which pathway your office should be taking to maximize legitimate reimbursement for your normal patients, your gingivitis patients, and then also your periodontal patients. All these resources are at your fingertips on practicebooster.com. I do want to share with you that one of the changes for 2024 is that in January, the ADA came out with a new claim form. So the last one was from 2019. Make sure, please, that your claim form on your system or what you're submitting through the mail via paper is the updated 2024 ADA CDT claim form. All that information is also on practicebooster.com, and it walks you through how to fill out this form. So if you're getting denials or delays because the forms are filled out incorrectly or you're not using it, practicebooster.com can take you through all of those issues and help you understand how to use the new claim form. I want to share with you a little bit, go back to a quick second here about what the most scrutinized procedures are. I think this is really important. This is something that I never knew, but when it comes to insurance carriers, they're looking for certain things. Essentially, they want to make sure that you're coding correctly and that you're coding for what you do. And if you're not coding correctly, or let's put it to you this way, if they review what you submitted and they get a sense that perhaps what you submitted was upcoding, maybe you submitted, like I said, for the full bony impaction, but when they look at it, the tooth will come out with a sneeze, right? Then you start to get flagged. So all providers go through this process. If they review your claims enough and what you submitted for isn't what actually is represented in your attachments and your x-rays and narratives and things, you can get flagged. And these are the codes that you really want to pay attention to, although you want to pay attention to all of them, but these are the ones that are most often scrutinized. So when you look at codes like this, how would I know what to look at? Well, that's what the Practice Booster Revenue Enhancement does for you. It's a consultation with you and Dr. Greg Gromeyer or myself or another Practice Booster advisor. We go through all of your coding utilization and see where you might be at risk and where we might be able to help you increase your legitimate reimbursement. One of the things we look at, let's look at the narrative guidelines. So this is a question I often ask when I'm lecturing, and it's really interesting to see what the answer you would give me here as well. And if I were, if this were live, I'd ask you, but what's the character limit for electronic claims in box 35 in the remarks section? I never knew this. Now, some of you are raising your hand, you know this all too well. It's 80 characters. What does that mean? Well, in the box 35 remarks sections of the electronic claim forms, you only get 80 characters, whether it's a space, a dot, a colon, or what I would always love is, this better go to the dental director. I'm so mad. He or she should not be, dictating treatment. You better pay this ASAP. That never gets, that part of the 80 characters gets read. Anything after 80 characters often gets lost. So you have to maximize those 80 characters in order for you to help ensure that you're going to get paid first pass. Make it patient-specific, not stock. It must match what is written in the provider's clinical notes in case you're ever audited, and avoid aggressive language. That doesn't help you, just burns characters. And the reason I tell you that is I've seen a lot of it, and I know it's frustrating. I'm a provider too. But this is your chance to make your case, and you only get 80 characters to do so. So let's take an example of how this could kind of really play out. So let's talk about gingivitis for a second. What percent of the U.S. adult population do you think suffers from gingivitis? And how often is your office billing out for a D4346? The reason I'm bringing up 4346 is this code changed in January of 2023. Okay, I know that sounds strange. The ADA had a mid-code change year for D4346 and D4355. So if you're using a 2023 coding asset, it's outdated. And it's changed to the point where this will help you maybe even boost your practice revenue a little bit. And this is just an example of what a practice booster revenue enhancement can do for your office. I'll just take you through this really quickly. So the research on the prevalence of gingivitis, here's one that says up to 90% of the population. Here's one that says up to 75% of the population. Here's one that says up to 50% of the adult population in the United States has gingivitis on 3 to 4 teeth. So we know that gingivitis is the #1 infectious disease in the world. We've got all these references here. This is important because are you treating gingivitis in your practice? And the reason I ask is, as an example, maybe you're leaving money on the table, but you're also maybe under-treating your patients. So either way, we want to help you to assess this, and that's what the practice booster revenue enhancement would do for you. So in this case, this looks like a normal periodontal charting. Patient comes in, we get as we're doing our periodontal screening, we catch a 4. And as soon as I get a 4, I train my team to say, okay, if you get 1-4, we got to do a full mouth perio charting. That's a D0180. Are you billing out for a D0180? Or are you billing out for a 120 or a 150? I can tell you, I'm shocked to see so many offices do not bill out at a 180, or the 180 billing is so low compared to everything else that it raises questions to me that perhaps we can help you. Because as a patient, I'm coming to you every 6 months or whatever it is. If I've never heard the word gingivitis before, and I come to your office, the next thing I know, you're telling me I've got bone loss, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I've come here every 6 months for 4 years. Is there no sign in those 4 years that I could be progressing towards periodontal disease? Well, that's where the 4346 comes in. And this is what the ADA updated to actually help us and our hygienists to treat our patients better. So when we're looking at this code, let's look. We're looking for 4s. We're also looking for bleeding upon probing. And this is where the narrative comes in. And I'm going to tell you, if to take nothing else out of today, here's your take-home message. And this will change your practice for at least this one code. And as I mentioned, there's 855 of them. So there's a lot of help that we can offer you. The narrative should include 4 millimeter probing depths and or bleeding upon probing on greater than 30% of teeth and no radiographic bone loss. Please, if you submit with bone loss, this will get rejected immediately. If you submit a PAN as a bite, to show that there's no bone loss, most likely it's going to get denied because PANs and most carriers don't accept PANs as diagnostic for caries or bone loss. So what we're looking at here is, well, what does this mean? So when I look at this, I've got one tooth here as a 4. And again, it could be any one of these 6 probing depths has to be a 4. That counts as one tooth having 4mm probing depths or bleeding upon probing. Both these teeth have bleeding upon probing. So when you look at this, you've got 4 there. That's how you count up the number of teeth. And the non-radiographic bone loss is the key. Please send bite wings, not a PAN or a PA, unless you've got these fancy new systems, which I wish I did, that could allow you to take those bite wings with your new fancy system. So we'll talk about that in depth as well. So what does the narrative say? I would suggest something along these lines: 4mm probing depths or, if it's and, you put and. If it's or, you put or. Or you can leave it and or. Bleeding upon probing on 30% of teeth with no radiographic bone loss. What did we mention earlier? We mentioned an 80-character rule limit. And I know what you're doing. You're all counting, because I would be too. I'll save the trouble. 77 characters. So you have to remember, a space is a character. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to count them all, but you get the idea. That's 77 characters. Now, I would even customize this more, because remember we said no stock narratives, space and punctuation count. But if you calculate the number of affected teeth, you count what we just did on this chart before. We said 4 in that one quadrant. Let's say there's 9 affected teeth and they have their wisdom teeth extracted, so they have 28 teeth. That would be 32%. So I would change this to 32%. That's enough customization. Submit it. Most likely you're going to get reimbursed for the 43, 46. So what I just showed you was a quick example of what a revenue enhancement is going to do for your office. Now, I know a lot of us are thinking, well, I don't know that code. I got to change my Imperio. I got to talk to my hygienist. It's worth the discussion, because you're going to uncover not just this issue, but Imperio, as we know, is a big part of a lot of our general dental practices. But it's not just that. If you're a specialist, all these things hold true regardless of whether you're a general dentist or a specialist. You have to code for what you do. You have to know about the 80 characters, and you have to know what the insurance carriers are looking for. So the Revenue Enhancement Program with Dr. Blair, full analysis of all your codes. We look at your codes, your fees. We look at your utilization management, and then we put together a plan to help you increase your revenue. If you're a general dentist and you don't want to do endo, you handle emergency patients who require pulpotomy differently than you would if you're going to keep that in-house. Because if you keep it in-house, you do the pulpotomy, the insurance company is going to take back that pulpotomy, and you're not going to get reimbursed as much as if you utilize a different service, which we would help walk you through. And these are the questions we ask you to help you maximize your legitimate reimbursement. The key of what we're teaching you is this is going to help protect you legally. It's also going to help protect you financially, because we only want you to code for what you're doing, and we want you to code correctly. If you're not coding correctly, you could be putting yourself into legal jeopardy, which we all know. And if you are not coding correctly, it could hurt you financially, which we unfortunately experience as well. So in summary, over the last 2 decades, Dr. Blair's done a revenue enhancement for over 3,000 practices. He's fighting on average about $50,000 that they're losing by incorrect coding. That means you're not going to see any more patients. You're not going to bring on any new technology. You don't have to go buy new things or learn new treatment. You're just going to code for what you do. Could give you up to a $50,000 revenue boost in each year. So essentially, we're saying if you're going to work 12 hours, get paid for 12 hours. Because right now, a lot of us are only getting paid for 10. And this is what the report looks like. So this is one office. Unfortunately, this office has not coding at 43, 46 at all. Now, that could be true. That means that your office doesn't have any patients who have gingivitis. Well, they have 748 adult patients, and none of those adult patients have gingivitis. That could happen. But is it probable? Is it more likely, or should we at least check that perhaps we might not be doing our preventive perio screenings correctly, or we might not be billing out for a 180 when we do need to do a periodontal charting for patients? Well, if we saw the statistics earlier, it's anywhere from 50 to 70% of adult patients have gingivitis. Well, even if you took the lower end of that and said only 33% of your patients in your practice have gingivitis, that could increase your revenue annually by a significant amount. This is what a revenue enhancement does. It looks at your practice, it figures out where you're coding, how you're coding, and it helps you to understand which digital asset or book, all these ones I have up here, to utilize to help teach you how to gain all this, to make sure you're not letting any of this slip through the cracks. What's nice about it too is we'll do a review of your fees and we'll tell you how your fees compare to other providers in your zip code so that you can raise your fees accordingly. Now, or it's entirely up to you, but what I always shared as a dental director, I was amazed how offices did not raise their fees annually. If you don't raise your fees annually, the insurance company will not raise your fees and your reimbursement. It's another statement Dr. Blair always said, raise your fees every year. So what do you think, if you haven't raised your fees in over 12 months, give us a call. We can help you. We can walk you through that. And the revenue you generate from us will then fund your ability to hire Unitas to then negotiate the fees that you have with those PPO carriers that you have up another notch, another 6-8%, whatever that is. So if you can get an 8% increase with us and then 6 to 8% increase with Unitas, now you're just making sure that you're not leaking any revenue as you're practicing, right? So that's the goal. Again, we'll go through every code that you're currently using. We'll tell you if you're using deleted codes, we'll tell you which codes to use instead. If you're using custom codes, we'll tell you which codes to use instead. And on average, we're seeing a big increase for a lot of our patients. Now, this was the one I did a couple months ago. Incredible amount of yearly increase, but on average, it's about $50,000 or up to $50,000. So a lot that we can do to help you. Really excited to be here today and share. On average, we're finding anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 that just by coding correctly, and then also helping you to make sure that you're maximizing your legitimate reimbursement. So, Phil, Shirley, I think we're at the Q&A section. I just want to check and see what if you guys got any questions. I'm not sure where they wound up, but
I don't know if you have any questions that have come in yet, but let's hop over to the special offer that we wanted to give to those that have attended today, and then we'll once we talk about that, we'll see if any more Q&A come through.
There you go. Thanks for the reminder. All right, so let's scan this code. This is a special offer just for Shirley because she's so nice and she brought us here today. So we really wanted to thank her and say, look, scan this code. You're going to get a free trial for the Code Advisor. So if you don't do anything else tonight, please just get your phone out, click this. You'll get a free trial to the online Code Advisor. That means you can go test it, kick the tires yourself, put codes in and put keywords in, test it, see what it gives you. And then look at the results that you get. I would even, just little FYI, I click on the 2024 coding update. You'll have 5 pages of all the new codes for 2024. That's our gift to you. So please scan this, go online. You also get a 10% discount on all Practice Booster books. We have like ebooks now. We have print books. We've got calendars. I mean, I feel like it's like a game show, right? Everybody wins tonight.
Come on down. Everybody's winning.
But Shirley, thank you so much for inviting us. Here's the thing. It's so hard to do what everybody on this call does. Between everybody in the office and Happy Dental Assistant Week, recognition week this week, we can't do any of this without dental assistants, right? And truthfully, we can't do this without anybody on our team. These teams are so unique. There's a lot of passion that they pour into these offices and their patients. We want to take one of the many hurdles that these offices deal with that unknowingly is draining their resources. I would have been very happy getting an extra $50,000. It's not even extra. You've already earned it. Now you got to collect it. And that's the difference.
100%. I just want to echo what Jim has been saying. I mean, there's no better champion for this message than Dr. DiMarino. I mean, like Jim said, being a dentist that's treated patients, that's been in the operatories, working with patients, being on the side of the insurance, on the other side of the claim form, right? Being there to help with auto adjudication and being the dental director. Jim understands the value proposition of both dentistry and insurance and the inherent problems that are like all throughout the dental workflow. And so that's why I'm so appreciative of him joining us on this co-branded webinar today, because at the end of the day, Unitas, obviously, we help with the ultimate increase of your reimbursements to negotiate those rates of reimbursement. And we've been talking about that, and we've been beating that drum for 10 years. And Dr. Blair, and we appreciate the legacy that he's left us. And Jim has been able to pick up the torch and continue to run with it. But Dr. Blair and Jim and their team, they've been preaching this for close to over 30 years. There's so much opportunity in the dental practice when it comes down to coding. That's where so much of the revenue leaks. Like what Jim said, there's, like you can see today, there's a wealth of knowledge within the team of Practice Booster and a wealth of knowledge within not just Jim, but within the resources that they provide. So I would just encourage everybody to scan that QR code, go jump around on Code Advisor. It's a fantastic resource. Our team uses it. I know lots of practices that use it. There's lots of insurance companies that use it. There's people across the whole industry of dental. This is the industry's leading CDT code database. So if you want to be able to code correctly, if you want to know which narratives to use, if you want to know which codes are new, which ones are deleted, all the knowledge that Jim has shared today and then some is available to you, not just within Code Advisor, but there within the Practice Booster book. So please go download that and take advantage of that free trial, because for 14 days you guys can test drive it, and I couldn't recommend a solution more for delivery.
I want to offer a challenge, because you just said something that really resonated with me. Try it for 14 days. If you turn one claim around, it's $297 for a year, and you get unlimited coding support. You got a question, you text us, and between Dr. Greg Robeyer, myself, and the team at Practice Booster, we will answer that question for you within 48 hours. In fact, I'm almost embarrassed that Dr. Blair never raised his fee on this. Although he's telling us we always have to raise our fees every year, he's had this at the same price for 10 years. So there is going to be a price increase, but don't tell anybody. Use this code now, try it out, and see what happens. I have to tell you, Phil's exactly right. I would want to use the same resource that insurance companies are using to review my claims to send my claims. And that's what this is. They're on the other end like, what is this code? 4920? I don't know what that is. They look it up here. And it does, I know it sounds silly, but a lot of dental insurance carriers have turnover just like we all do. So they have different levels of knowledge on the other side. And we know when we call insurance carriers, please be nice to them. They're great people. They're just doing their job. But there's a way that we can both win. And speaking the same language, knowing these things, my goal is to bring that knowledge here so that as a provider, you don't have to worry about this. We help you so that ultimately we give you a little bump that occurs immediately. If you do this tomorrow, you're going to see a change in revenue as soon as that patient pays or the insurance reimburses you. Then take that money and reinvest it in Unitas to get your fees as high as they can be with your PPO plans. Then you're really working a 12-hour day and getting paid for 12 hours.
Couldn't agree more. I'm downloading it right now. I'm taking advantage of the free trial, and
You did it. Good. Well, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, Jim is so much. I hope everybody else does it too, and it's not just for Shirley. Shirley, we want you to have a free trial too. But
Thank you. I just so appreciated all of this information, the mapping out of the different ways that we can prevent leakages, and just so helpful, and especially the artificial intelligence aspect to it. That it's so important to understand how these claims are being assessed, and I just thought that was really, really helpful, because that sort of applies in different areas across industries. So to really get that insight is really helpful. Well, thank you so much. We're at the 7:00 hour. Please join me in thanking tonight's speakers for a wonderful presentation, and thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Phylip. Thank you, Dr. DiMarino. We did record tonight's webinar, and we'll email that recording out sometime in the next week. We'd love to get your feedback, and that you will have an opportunity to fill out very shortly via our survey that's going to pop up on your screens. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we'll see you again on future webinars.
Thanks, Shirley. Thanks, everyone.
bye.